Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight in and cracking open the societal rulebook to master Chapter 2, Concepts of Law and Justice. Let's get a really solid grip on the foundational rules of the American legal system so we can absolutely ace this upcoming test together.
Here is our roadmap for Chapter 2, Civil versus Criminal Law. Sources of our laws, the elements of a crime, strategies for criminal defense, and finally, the exam answer formula.
Section 1, Civil versus Criminal Law.
Okay, we're going to start by dividing the legal rulebook right down the middle, just to see exactly how society handles completely different types of conflicts. Over on the civil law side, we're dealing with private disputes between individuals. This is where a plaintiff brings a suit. Now, the burden of proof here is just a preponderance of the evidence. Think of it like a scale. It really only needs to tip like 51% in one direction to win. But then, look at criminal law. Here, the government is the one bringing the charges. And because the defendant faces extremely severe consequences, like prison time or even execution, that scale requires massive weight. It has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. This contrast is absolutely fundamental to how the whole system operates.
Section 2. Sources of our laws.
So, with the legal paths separated, we really have to ask, where do these rules actually come from? And who writes the rules that protect our rights? Well, our most foundational rules come directly from constitutional law, specifically these 4 crucial amendments in the Bill of Rights. They're designed to protect individual liberties from government overreach. You've got the 4th Amendment protecting you from unreasonable searches and seizures, the 5th protects against double jeopardy and self-incrimination, the 6th guarantees the right to a speedy trial and an impartial jury, and the 8th protects against cruel and unusual punishment. Listen, these aren't just dusty historical footnotes, they're the active shield for your rights every single day.
Now, stepping beyond the Constitution, we hit case law. This relies on a pretty fascinating Latin concept, stare decisis. It literally translates to standing by things already settled. In practice, this just means later courts use earlier court decisions to establish precedent. It's basically how the legal system stays consistent over time. They use past decisions to carefully guide current ones, instead of just reinventing the wheel for every single case.
And that brings us to the final division in our legal sources, substantive versus procedural law. Substantive law tells us exactly what behaviors are illegal and what the punishments are. It is the what of the law. Procedural law, on the other hand, dictates how cases actually move through the system. It's the how. A brilliant example of procedural law is your Miranda warnings. Those exist specifically to guarantee that your constitutional rights are actually protected throughout the entire legal process.
Section 3. The elements of a crime. All right, let's dissect the actual anatomy of a broken rule. For most behaviors to actually be considered a crime in the eyes of the court, there are exactly 2 core elements that must exist together, and they have to happen at the exact same time, a legal concept known as concurrence.
Element number 1 is Actus Reus. This is Latin for the guilty act. It represents the actual physical action of committing a crime. You can't just sit around and think about doing something illegal. There has to be an actual physical step taken.
But, and this is absolutely crucial, that physical act must concur with our second element, mens rea, or the guilty mind. This refers to your specific intent or state of mind at the exact moment the act was committed. This is the key factor that distinguishes, say, accidentally bumping into someone in a crowded hallway from an intentional physical assault. Without the guilty mind, that physical act might not be a crime at all. So intent is the real game changer here, which naturally leads us to wonder, what if you didn't intend to break the law? What if you break a rule completely by accident? Does the system just, let you off the hook?
Well, not exactly. The answer lies in strict liability offenses. These are specific crimes where the government literally does not have to prove intent at all. The classic example, getting a speeding ticket. Simply committing the act, driving over the speed limit, is enough for a conviction, regardless of whether you meant to do it or if you just genuinely didn't realize how fast you were going. In these cases, the Actus Reus alone gets the job done.
Section 4. Strategies for criminal defense.
Now, when the government attempts to prove a crime occurred, the defense doesn't just sit there quietly. They can use specific legal strategies to justify or excuse the behavior. Check out these 4 primary defenses. First up, necessity. That's breaking a law to prevent a much greater harm. Next is duress, meaning you were literally forced to commit a crime because of an immediate, severe threat. Third is entrapment, when a government official actually persuades someone to commit a crime they otherwise never would have done. And finally, self-defense, the justified use of force against an active threat. It shows that under the right conditions, an illegal act might actually be legally excused.
Section 5. The exam answer formula.
Okay, now that we have the rules down, let's talk strategy. How do we build all this knowledge into the perfect response for your upcoming test? To ace your essay questions, you're going to want to use this specific 4-step formula. Step 1, define the concept in a single sentence. Step 2, explain the main idea in plain language. Step 3, give an original, real-world example. And Step 4, add a short evaluation or comparison. This structured approach proves to your professor that you deeply understand the why behind the concepts, rather than just regurgitating textbook definitions.
Let's see this in action. Say you get an essay question on mens rea. Your answer should seamlessly walk right through this exact framework. Step 1, define. It is the guilty mind or intent. Step 2, explain. It is used to distinguish between an accident and a crime. Step 3, example. The difference between bumping into someone accidentally versus intentionally hitting them. And Step 4, evaluate. Contrast it with strict liability, where intent doesn't matter. If you walk through this exact framework, I guarantee you confidently nail those complex essay questions.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really powerful quote from the course text. Criminal law is not just about punishment. It is a system of rules, rights, procedures, and proof. Ultimately, the big takeaway here is that our legal framework is a careful, deliberate balancing act. It is designed to protect your individual rights just as much as it exists to punish wrongdoing.
So as you organize your notes and head into Test 1, chew on this final thought. If procedural laws keep the government in check, what happens when new technologies totally outpace our historical definitions of search and seizure? Are our constitutional rules going to be flexible enough to handle the complex crimes of the future? Good luck on your exam, keep that exam answer formula handy, and keep asking those big questions.